How's it going, everybody? Jeff Johnson from the Gazette here with my cohorts, K.J. Pilcher and Jeff Linder. I didn't forget your name, Jeff. I really didn't. I was distracted by Hercules on the background. Hi, Hercules. Oh, wait a minute. That's just a picture. Okay, I got you. He's going to be he might be our guest host next week here.
Hey, there you go.
Of the Prep Huddle, Prep Football podcast. We're here to talk, obviously, about prep football. We're, Jeff, what did you just point out? This week will be halfway point for the smaller classes, right?
Halfway for 2A on down.
Unbelievable. And I saw on Twitter yesterday that Kirkwood's men's basketball team had its photo day yesterday. So apparently that's right around the corner, even though we're only halfway through September. But,
right.
Let's dive right in, guys. We've got, last week was an interesting week, and we've got 5 new number 1 teams in our poll, our Gazette poll. It was kind of a topsy-turvy week. I mean, where do you want to start? How about, maybe 5A, where we had the number 1 team go down in Ankeny, getting beat by West Des Moines Dowling. Not really a big surprise, guys, just because, I mean, Dowling's Dowling, and, you can maybe kind of cast a net around some of those teams over in Central Iowa.
Yeah, I don't think you could ever say Dowling's a surprising winner in anything. One thing, actually, we have 3 new number 1s this week. I think the thing we've got 5 different number 1s in Class 1A. We've got 6 balloters, and we've got 5 different number 1s.
Okay, there you go. What 1A, does that mean 1A is maybe the most balanced class? What do you guys think about that? You got Beckman, you got West Branch, up and down the line, Central Line, George Little Rock with an impressive win last week over West Sioux. It kind of goes on and on. And is that just Van Meter? Is that just a sign that 1A is the most balanced class, or what?
Go ahead, KJ.
I think that's a reasonable assumption. The one thing I think too is I think this is a product of just kind of the district setup, to where, since these games really don't hurt you when it comes to the postseason eligibility and stuff like that, you can go out and you can schedule different teams. You can schedule teams from different classes, so these guys aren't really crossing paths. You see just different results, because whether they win or lose, it doesn't hurt them. Van Meter, 5-6 years ago, they're probably not playing Williamsburg at this point of the season, and who's to say they're not undefeated right now in that old system, right? But they can go out and play at Williamsburg and get tested, take a loss, and not really affect them, too bad down the road, right? So you've got teams with kind of this balance of a resume, all the way across, and that's why it might seem you have these various teams, like a Beckman. It's kind of hard to gauge, and for the first few weeks.
Just kind of looking through our ballots, Beckman had 2 number 1 votes. Pella Christian had 1. Underwood had 1. Van Meter had 1. West Branch had 1. And that doesn't include West Sioux, who still might be the best team in the class, despite getting thumped pretty good by Central Lion, George Little Rock, which, boy, that's a really, really good 2A team.
Yeah, guys, we're looking at Iowa City Regina too, being on the outside of the rankings right now. So maybe that, I mean, there you go. Dyke New Hartford's 8th. Dyke New Hartford's a terrific team. I mean, you just go up and down. Pella Christian, as Jeff mentioned, and Appleton Parkersburg's got a really good team. And who else we have ranked? Carroll Kemper's really had a nice start to the season, and Durant and Wilton over there on the other side of the Quad Cities, between Cedar Rapids and Quad Cities, both are 3-0. So,
and that there's some really good 1A football around here. You talk about Durant, Wilton. I mean, they're in that same district. So you got Durant, you got Wilton, you got Regina, West Branch, and Minneapolis. Those are the 5 to 6 teams in that district. And then you go up north and you got Beckman and Cascade and MFL and Columbus and somebody else that's really good in that district. I think it's Summer Fred. So, those 2 nearby 1A districts are just really, really strong.
And maybe we'll start getting maybe a clearer picture. This week kind of mentioned, I think you mentioned Meepo, I think Regina and Minneapolis play each other this week. So, maybe this is the week we'll start separating some of these teams.
I don't know. It's the fact that there's another class. We've got 5 classes of 8 or of 11 player football. Does that have anything to do with parity? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, there's not a whole lot of enrollment that separates a lot of these schools, right?
Yeah. When there's only 36 to 48 schools in each class, sometimes there's not a whole lot to pick from. And, but I do think that most of these classes at the very top, there's a lot of strength there.
KJ, as I scroll through here to do the 2A rankings, we've got Central Lyon and Otobold Arthur. Battle Creek got a Grove just kind of flip-flop 1-2 this week. Williamsburg right there, a strong 3. You saw the Raiders last week run the gauntlet successfully, with a huge win last week over Solon. And I know we've talked a lot about Williamsburg here the first 3 weeks, but justifiably so, man. I mean, when you look at that schedule and, beating up Regina, then going to Van Meter and ending their regular season win streak, and now, beating a Solon team that, came in a little wounded from a loss the previous week. You just can't say enough about the job that Kurt Ritchie's done and his boys. And right now it lightens up a little bit, right, to get into actual district play.
Yeah, and that's where they've usually really hit another gear, head and shoulders above most of the teams that they faced in district play. But I was so impressed with Williamsburg, especially defensively, watching them really contain Blake Timmons, who's an outstanding player at Solon, really kind of limit what he was able to do. They did give up a couple long touchdown runs to Brett White, who broke some tackles at the line of scrimmage and then was gone after that. But, he's a tough guy to bring down anyway. But what I think was really telling or indicative of Williamsburg was the first quarter and what they were able to do, especially defensively. 3-and-out to start the game for Solon. Williamsburg fumbles the punt. Solon takes over deep in Williamsburg territory. Turnover on downs. So they hold. 2 plays later, deep in their own territory, Solon gets a interception, takes over maybe the 12 or 22 of Williamsburg. I think they get a field goal. They have good field position again, get turned away, and I think they started at the 46 and got another field goal. So out of those first 4 or 5 possessions, 3 of them starting deep in Williamsburg territory. The other scoring drive started at the 46. A team like Solon, who I had at number 2 to start the year, only came away with 6 points out of the deal, 2 30-plus yard field goals. I mean, that says a lot about a team. And then once they kind of got some things clicking offensively, they were able to take control. Carson Hudapole making the transition to quarterback, runs the ball really well. Had his hands, I think, in 5 touchdowns, whether it was rushing or throwing the ball. He hasn't played that position since junior high. It was just one of the ways they thought they could be better offensively. So he's still learning as he goes, and that can be scary for opponents. And any production they get offensively to support that defense is going to make them a tough out for anybody down the line.
Looking at the rest at our poll again here, we've got Southeast Polk, your new number 1 in 5A, with Dowling number 2 and Pleasant Valley right there at 3, Ankeny and Cedar Rapids Kennedy, round out the top 5. Anything strike you? I mean, are we getting any sort of a sense, guys, that maybe now there are some teams over on this side of the state that can compete, with the big dogs in the Des Moines suburbs? Are we getting any more clear of a picture whether that can happen this year, do you think, or not yet?
I'd say not until it happens. I think Pleasant Valley is kind of our cash cow over here in Eastern Iowa. As far as if somebody's going to do it, it might be Pleasant Valley. But I'm still at the point where prove it to me first.
I say no.
Okay.
I mean, and this is coming from somebody that's got Pleasant Valley number 1, and just for people that are viewing, and I know we've got 6 voters, and all 6 of us probably come to the table with different ways that they kind of do things. One, I kind of get a set sense of teams the first couple weeks, and then it just kind of depends on teams kind of holding their spot. And if you lose and a team behind you wins, that team moves up, you move down. That's kind of how Pleasant Valley is snuck into the top spot in my poll, even though if I were to bet Pleasant Valley against an Ankeny or against the Dowling, I'm probably going with, Ankeny, Southeast Polk, or Dowling coming away with a win. But I still think it's the same old. I think you've got, 4 teams in the central part of the state that will run roughshod over the rest. And, depending on how things work out with postseason paths, you might get an Eastern team to the Dome, but boy, and like Linder said, until they actually do it, I don't see anybody on the side of the state coming away with a victory that means something against those top teams. But we'll find out with City High. We'll find out with City High at Dowling.
Yeah. I think Dowling will be ready for
that. Interesting thing I came across. City High's in the process of fundraising for a multi-million-dollar, I think it's officially called like a sports performance center on campus there. And that's something that your suburban Des Moines schools already have. I mean, is this the trend? Is this what's got to happen? Over on this side of the state, something that maybe City High has realized and is going to raise money to build through that. I mean, is that something that's got to happen over here for Eastern Iowa, maybe to be able to compete on a state level? I mean, is it kind of college facilities type of thing, Iowa high school level?
I mean, you've seen what they have to work with. I mean, we've seen the facilities that accompany the opening of Waukee Northwest. I remember the rehaul of Urbandale's weight room. I mean, when you have that type of when you have those resources available, can you win without it? Yeah, you could if you had the right people. Xavier does a heck of a lot of winning. And to be honest, the facilities, the weightlifting facilities at Xavier are not anything
Rudimentary.
spectacular,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But then again, you probably have people that go outside of the building for, you know, performance training and stuff like that. So they do have resources to be able to do stuff like that. If the school doesn't have it, public schools, you know, they might need to be able to offer something like that, you know, on their campus. I mean, it might not be a necessity, but it's definitely an enhancement that is going to take you a lot further. And I mean, you see, I mean, there's a huge difference when you have those type of facilities and that stuff at your fingertips to be able to use for agility, for strength, you know, just for overall fitness and coordination. I mean, it's amazing just the different things it can build, and that's just the physical things, not to mention the mental things, you know, like confidence and stuff like that it can help produce. And I think you have that, you know, you have that opportunity in those Central Iowa teams and programs and schools. And, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why there's such an imbalance in power at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this works going forward. I think the Cedar Rapids public schools, you know, that they have a bond issue that people are going to be able to vote on, and I think that part of that is enhancement of those type of facilities at the 3 high schools here in town. I know Prairie's got a new weight, you know, strength facility at its school, you know, things like that. But KJ, that's a great point. You know, Xavier is still got that little tiny weightlifting room there right off the gym that is small, you know, or the original one's as small as probably any CLC. So, you know,
yeah,
you know, it is interesting.
But then again, just from personal experience, I know there are a lot of athletes at Xavier that go elsewhere for a lot of that stuff.
Okay.
You know, so the school itself doesn't have it, but it's still accessible, if that makes sense, you know, for them. So they're, even though maybe I'm being a little disingenuous by saying, well, you know, they've got a smaller weight room, you know, stuff like that. However, they still have athletes that have access to it.
Sure.
Just off grounds. And you know, you look at the facilities that Regina has. I don't know if you've seen their addition, maybe about 5 years old now or so, where they've got weight room, they've got an indoor practice facility for multiple sports: football, baseball, softball, soccer. The second level is the weight room, and a pretty state-of-the-art one for a small school, and training rooms and, you know, classrooms for, you know, breaking down film and stuff like that. And, you know, it's definitely an aid for sports, and it's not just football. It's across the board.
Let's run into our KJ throws together a 4 down segment that maybe you saw in the paper today. Hopefully you saw in the paper today. You know, we take, it's literally 4 downs. We'll ask a question and then give our answers, our particular answers to it. First down this week was, who had the bigger win last week? Was it Marion over Benton Community, or Western Dubuque over Iowa City Liberty? Both were surprising, I think. But guys, how'd you answer that question? 2 great wins.
Personally, I went with Marion because I thought it was the more surprising win. I didn't see that coming. I thought Benton Community was rolling pretty well, and Marion was kind of backsliding a little bit. I saw that they put Alex Moda in the backfield, and maybe that's the magic pill for Marion, and we'll see how that goes playing forward. That's the one I said. Both of them surprised me. Western Dubuque's recent history, they've been awfully successful. So that didn't quite shock me quite as much, but Marion over Benton really opened my eyes.
Two big wins, right? The one I thought Marion's was bigger for a few different reasons. One, they weren't necessarily real competitive in their first two games against Clear Creek, Amana, and Washington. I think they scored 3 times as many points in their game against Benton as they did the first 2 weeks combined. I think it was 38 compared to 13 previously. Benton had steamrolled their first two opponents. Grinnell, like 35-0, beat CPU by 30 points in week 2. So that was the one. Marion had lost, I want to say 9 straight games or something like that. They've gone almost a whole year without a win. That was a big win for them. Second-year coach, Michael Joyner, you need these successes, right, to kind of prove to the guys, hey, what we're doing is working. Keep putting in the effort because it's going to pay off. So I think that's where Marion's win was bigger. With Western Dubuque, they're 0-2, but the thing is, their 2 losses were to Xavier and North Scott, who play each other this week, and 2 really top 5 teams in Class 4A and 2, perennial powers. So that 0-2 start was a little bit of a misnomer, but I think a lot of us were really high on Liberty after their first 2 weeks, especially the win over City High. So seeing them come away with a win, you kind of were thinking, okay, they'll go up to Western Dubuque and get a win. But, Western Dubuque, I guess when you have a Harris, anything is possible. Outside of curing cancer right now, I think they've done just about anything and everything you could. So Brett Harris getting his first start and throwing the Hail Mary on 4th and 6, going out of bounds and launching it and finding Davion Gaston in the end zone. Big win for them as well, but not quite the shocker or as big of a catapult as Marion's could be.
Yeah, freshman quarterbacking at that level, huh? Stepping right in.
Who's already been part of a state championship team, right?
Yeah, as an 8th grader in baseball.
He's hoisted a state championship trophy before even taking a class at Western Dubuque as a high schooler.
Take that, Calvin. You got nothing, man, compared to your little brother. So our next question, which defense has been the most impressive through week 3? Guys, I went with Alburnett just because the Pirates haven't been a real high-scoring team offensively to this point. They've won games scoring 16 points in a game and 14 in another game, giving up about 4 points a game, I believe. So that was who I went with. What defense has been most impressive to you guys through week 3?
I just threw out that trio of Alburnett, Northland, East Buck. Whenever 2 of those 3 teams get together and Alburnett plays East Buchanan this week, I think you're always smart to bet on the under, no matter what that would be. We've talked quite a bit about Williamsburg. KJ talked about them earlier. I've seen them earlier. They're terrific defensively. So that's kind of the direction I would go.
Yeah, Williamsburg is one of those teams that they're always going to be close to the top of the list here this season when you talk about that. The one I picked was Pleasant Valley. So far through 3 5A games, they've only given up like 4 or 5 points. I think 4.3 points a game. They really handled Prairie. I think Prairie's touchdown came in the 4th quarter. They, even though Linmar took them to overtime, they only gave up one score there. They had a shutout in week 2. I think they've only given up a couple hundred yards. They shut out Hempstead. That was the other one. So they've been impressive. You mentioned Alburnett and East Buck. Obviously, they're right there. Alburnet's. I'm not even sure if Alburnett has had 2 shutouts in a row before this year. They've done that the last 2 weeks, and I went through Varsity Bound all the way back to 2008 or whenever they're available, and can't find back-to-back shutouts for Alburnett during that time. And the only time I saw them with 2 shutouts in a season, 2017 and 2010. So this is a much improved Alburnett defense. But one honorable mention vote, Baxter. Baxter's 3-0. They're only giving up 5.3 points per game in 8-player. That's pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
Nathan Ford, our cohort, also weighs in with us each week, and he mentioned how Williamsburg's got 9 takeaways through 3 games already, and against 3 really good teams.
Right.
And then he mentioned Humboldt and Red Oak. Neither one have given up a point so far this season. So there's still some good defense being played out there in an offensive era, even at the high school level here. So,
for sure.
All right, what do you going back away from defense back to offense? What matchup's likely to produce the most points this week? What do you got, boys?
The first one that comes to mind for me is City High Dowling. Right now I think both teams are 2-1, right? But just kind of looking at what they give up and what they score. City High is number 1 in Class 5A when it comes to points per game. Well over 30 points per game there for the Little Hawks. Dowling's not too far behind there. And the thing that really kind of stands out is I think Dowling gives up an average of 28 per game. And actually, the number is City High gives up scores 50.3 yards a game, 55 on Ames last week. They give up almost 20 points a game. Dowling is at 28.7 for and 22.3 against. So I think that has the makings of a pretty high scoring game. Not to mention, remember last year, even though that was only 17-14 or something like that, I think both of these teams are going to be out for blood, given what happened last year at City High.
The first thing I did is I looked to see who BGM was playing, because they score a ton and they give up a ton. But they're playing Woodward Academy, so they'll score a ton and not give up much. So I just went hunch. I just went Liberty and Clear Creek. I think I saw that Liberty had that 36-30 game last week, and Clear Creek's got some playmakers. So I think that might be a game that there might be 60 points scored in that.
Of course, I cheated and went 8-player when I probably shouldn't have. But, Gladbrook, Rhinebeck, and Trappola are both 3-0, I believe, and play this week. And Trappola's averaging 71 points a game, and Gladbrook, Rhinebeck, 61. So, common sense says that there might be a few points scored in that game, and, watch it be like 6-0 or something like that. So, our last question, and this is a good one, KJ, that you came up with. What high school program would you like to see as a subject of a reality TV series? Kind of, as KJ mentioned, kind of Hard Knocks meets Meeting Up with the Kardashians. And I think, Jeff, you and I were kind of on the same wavelength a little bit here. You want to tell the folks what you came up with?
I went with Cedar Rapids Xavier, just because they're so vanilla and so basic and so close to the vest that it'd kind of be fun to see what they look like in real life. That's just kind of the direction I went, and dying to see what that scout team's made of.
That's where I went to was, and you're 100% right in all that. Coach Dwayne Schulte's done this for years and years, and Jim O'Connell, as defensive coordinator, has been with him throughout that time. And, they play a hard game, so to speak. They always want to be very physical. And, I think there'd be some good stories there to watch. And again, yeah, especially one on the scout team, right, Jeff? So do they really give good looks to the starters every week, or is that just something that is repeated ad nauseum from the starters? So, and I thought City High might be one too, just because, I think Mitch Moore has a personality to him that would lend itself maybe a little bit to that, and up and coming program. And anytime you have like a world champion wrestler like a Ben Keeter, I think that'd be kind of interesting too. KJ, you went back to a program that you followed.
Actually, yeah, I had the luxury of kind of embedding myself with Iowa City Regina a few years ago. I want to say 2013 season, 2014, right around there, right when they're on the verge of their win streak and title run. Really got an inside look, even though Marv Cook's not there anymore. A lot of the other coaches still are. Ed Hinkle, Jason Dumont, those were individuals that, were kind of fun to hang around. I remember Ed Hinkle running routes against receivers or against D-backs that thought, hey, you're too old. And Ed took him to town still, being a little older, showed his moves from when he was a Hawkeye. So there was a lot of fun in that program. I still remember Marv Cook's announcement on the bus ride on the way to Wilton, I think. But they were passing West Branch, and he talked about how the sky was a little bluer, the air a little crisper, and the guys a little bit cooler and stuff that were from West Branch, obviously, because he's from West Branch. And just the fun that they had back and forth was kind of cool. Honorable mention, because I've known him for many, many years, and I know he would be extremely entertaining. Just being able to follow Maurice Blue around for the season and get some of his let's say colorful analysis, whether it be in practice or competition or just in general. Washington would be kind of cool too.
Speaking of Washington, we have a couple of games on Thursday night. We're taping this on Wednesday. A couple of Thursday night games, one down in Davenport, Iowa City West against Davenport North. Trojans are 2-1, North is 0-3, so you would expect West High to come out with a victory there. A team that certainly has improved from a year ago, has a couple of really good players there, and Jack Wallace at quarterback and Christian Janis at receiver. And then I think what'll be a really interesting one out of Kingston Stadium tomorrow night as well, between Cedar Rapids, Washington, and Linn-Mar. Washington's 2-1, Linn-Mar 1-2. Linn-Mar lost to Pleasant Valley in overtime last Friday night. Washington lost its annual, grudge match against Cedar Rapids Kennedy out at Kingston. So any thoughts on either one of those? Jeff, you saw Washington against Kennedy. Kennedy's defense really coming along, huh?
Yeah. Washington special teams have to be a lot better this week. They were Kennedy's special teams kind of kicked them all over the field the other night. They blocked a punt, they blocked an extra point, 2 field goals, recovered an onside kick. So I assume that'll be a focal point for Washington. That's a big game. That's a big game for both teams. Both coming off a loss. Linn-Mar coming off 2 in a row. Like I said in the capsule, it's kind of a dumb cliche, but Thursday's the first game of the rest of the season, and I think it's a biggie for both.
It's kind of interesting looking at Washington, and something that you don't see really at this point of the season. Both of the records of their opponents, both winning records, and even though Linmar is 1-2. Their opponents are like 16-11. Washington at 2-1. They're 14-13. So, at first I was thinking Linmar's had kind of a tougher schedule, but Washington has played some pretty good teams here to start as well. I think that Linmar offense versus Washington's defense is going to be the key matchup there, strength on strength possibly.
Let's look a little bit. Friday night, one that just caught my eye right off the top is Alberta at East Buchanan. A couple of really good Class A teams there. Kind of looking outside the area a little bit. Appleton, Parkersburg, and Denver. Denver coming off its first loss of the season. We got the big rivalry at Cascade and Dyersville Beckman is another one that's really interesting. Jeff, I believe you're going to be out at Clear Creek to watch Clear Creek Manna and Iowa City Liberty, certainly, which is a very interesting game. Is there any others on the schedule, guys, that you may have come across that really intrigue you?
I mentioned Mount Vernon center point Urbana. Mount Vernon's played really, really well. And CPU's kind of quietly 2-1. We'll see if how good center point Urbana really is. If they're pretty good, if they can compete with Mount Vernon, which I would say is probably maybe one of the bigger surprises of the season so far in the area.
KJ, you mentioned City High and Dowling. Obviously, that's a huge one. That'll be out at Valley Stadium in West Des Moines. Solon Assumption play. Can Solon avoid a 3-game losing streak? Who would have thought we'd be talking about that? Anything that caught your eye, KJ, specifically that maybe you haven't mentioned here?
Well, I think the big one, obviously, East Buck Albernet. You mentioned Beckman Cascade, Xavier North Scott.
There's a big one.
That's a huge one. Both teams have really been, kind of rolling so far. The Regina Meepo game.
Yeah.
I mean, Regina's 2-1. I think Meepo's 3-0, and I want to say Minneapolis has been trouncing teams that they've faced so far. So, I think that's a big one. And of course, not seeing a lot of people kind of decide to look the other way after Regina lost pretty handily to Williamsburg, but I don't know if they've really garnered the attention and respect after winning the last two games that they have, and Meepo's put up I think they've averaged over 40 or just about 40 points a game. So I think this will be a really good test for Regina to see exactly where they're at, and then we'll see if Meepo's for real.
That's a nice program. I mean, that you don't really hear about a lot, KJ. Minneapolis. I mean, seems like they're good pretty much every season. If I remember right, they had a quarterback that ended up at Kansas State, played for a while here a few years back as well. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but yeah, seemed to be good year in and year out. So yeah, it'll be that's a great. It should be an interesting game, Regina and Minneapolis tomorrow night. So, Jeff at JT Linder, Clear Creek, Amana, and Liberty, right?
Yep, tomorrow night. That's where I'll be.
At KJ Pilcher. KJ, what you got?
I got East Buck Albernet. I'll be out there to see that game that might be first 1 to 6, right? Linder, is that how you mentioned it? First?
And that might be it sounds like the first one that might make you the first one out of our survivor pool.
Yeah, that's right. I'm okay, so I got picked now, right?
Do you want to pick a winner, or do you want to pick a point total?
might be easier to pick a point total, but Boy, I tell you what, I know. So I'm going to go with the home team. Gosh, I really want to go with East Buck, but you know what? I'm going to go with Alburnett. So I may be the first one out of the pool, but I figured might as well go down with a toughie.
I like your guts, man. That's gutsy right there. So, Lindy, what do you got?
Guts are dumb.
I'm going to go with the game you're going to be at. You're going to the game, not so much for the game, but for the halftime festivities. You're going to give off the banner and the trophies and all that, the plaques to Mr. Austin Hilmer at halftime. I got Northland over Clayton Ridge in my survivor pool game.
And you passed off the one to Macy Doffelt the other night.
Last night. Yep. Good crowd for that. That was a lot of fun.
They didn't make you do any speeches, I hope, right? Because I'm sure not going to do any.
I had the script ready for him. I've got the script ready for you. And all I had to do was stand there. I'd say stand there and look good, but I just stood there.
I'm going easy again this week, guys, or what I think's easy. Williamsburg over Central Lee. So I'll go tough next week. I promise, with one of the remaining classes. Nathan Ford
has Prairie over a shockingly 0-3 Bettendorf team. I was thinking about that. Bettendorf gave up a lot of yards to a young man from Muscatine last week. I think the kid had almost 400 yards rushing. Bettendorf's 0-3, and we were talking about North Scott a little bit. Is North Scott and maybe even Assumption kind of replaced Bettendorf as maybe the second and third best programs in the MAC behind Pleasant Valley, not just football but across the board?
It's interesting to me, Jeff, that Pleasant Valley and Bettendorf are neighboring school districts, and it just seems like I don't know if it's a housing thing or what, but Pleasant Valley's taken over. Wouldn't you agree? Kind of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Old Bettendorf position of being the preeminent, athletics program, maybe overall, down there in the Quad Cities. So it's just interesting to me that, again, I'm not real versed on the geography down there, but, it might just be like a Kennedy deal here in town, right? Where there was more room to grow, housing, more new housing, things like that have helped Pleasant Valley, and here in town, as we know, Kennedy's enrollment's bigger than the other two schools and things like that. So 0-3, you never think you'd see it, Bettendorf. But all right, anything else? Any parting shots? No.
Hey, one thing with Linder. With JJ, with you awarding Hilmer with AOY banner, with Linder going to West Liberty last night. The one thing that I think has always been a really cool addition is being able to honor these athletes and schools with the banners that we provide. And I just want to take a second to thank the schools, the administrators, the programs for allowing us to display these banners in their gyms. The schools that do that, I mean, it shows your unending support of those athletes, whether they're still in your program or honoring the contributions they made while they were there now that they've gone. Just want to say thank you to those guys for allowing us to celebrate those athletes that, we wanted to honor with that award and continue to kind of have a lasting tribute to them. So thank you guys. This year it's West Liberty and Northland, but for all the past ones that have those hanging up in their gyms or in their schools, thank you.
And they're not just supporting the athletes. To an extent, they're supporting us. They're allowing us to put our brand in their gym, and can't appreciate that enough. To see that logo in their gyms is it means a lot to me.
It's the best thing we do, or one of the best things we do. I really have always thought that. So, like you guys said, thank you to everybody for helping support the athletes and us, obviously to a lesser extent. So, all right, for another edition of the Prep Huddle, Jeff, and KJ, enjoy your Friday nights, everybody. Enjoy some football tomorrow night. If you feel so inclined, get out to Kingston if you're around here or down Davenport. So, as always, we'll let KJ take us out. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching. Always keep your head on a swivel.